So welcome back to 4% TV, where I'm the coach.
And I'm the consultant.
And we probably should say that again because you might want to know our names. Do we want to do our names?
I'm Jim. I'm the consultant.
And I'm Cher. I'm the coach. And we talk about business development concerns and issues and opportunities and obstacles from those two perspectives to help you feel your way forward. Today, because it's almost Christmas.
Almost Christmas, yeah.
We've got snow, we've got a blizzard in the
Big
forecast.
storm coming.
And people are thinking, get through Christmas, and then there's a whole new year ahead. As they get ready for that new year ahead, they're looking back at 2022, evaluating. Ideally, there's some level of evaluation that you're doing right now to say what worked and what didn't. For many business owners, so if you're in this boat, you are not unusual. You're not really sure how to evaluate what worked and what didn't work. And there's, realistically, for most of you, you don't even have the data yet, right? Many people are like, let's do the year in review,
Yep.
but it's only December. And what typically happens for people who are trying to look at the year in December?
We had this discussion recently with a client where the experience that they've had historically about getting their numbers, and that's in the broadest sense of their numbers, not just the financials, but other aspects of the business as well, trails the end of the year by up to 6 months.
Wow.
At which point it's not really meaningful anymore. Certainly not meaningful for decision making, and not meaningful for looking to the year ahead. A big part of one of the things that we talk to business owners about is that, having timely information, so that if you're in the end of December trying to figure out how the year went, you got November, year-to-date November numbers at least.
Right. So timely information is really having a look at your month-to-month P&L. And being able to evaluate what did you do in the month in advance of that. Right. So that you're kind of tracking. Like I'm a marketing person. I love sales and marketing. And then the results of sales and marketing is what shows up in that P&L. And it might be something that you started promoting in August, started to pay off September. So looking at September and saying, what did we do in September? Well, it's what you did in August that really matters. So being able to match that marketing calendar to that month to month. So if somebody doesn't have those numbers coming from their bookkeeper, if they've got access to QuickBooks, is there a report that they could be pulling? I mean, most people hate QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Love-hate relationship.
Yeah. I'm on the hate side of that. Just saying, because it's not really oriented. I'm an accountant, so it's not really oriented towards accounting information, which is good for business owners because mostly they don't want accounting information. They want business information. That's a very interesting topic that you bring up. So there's getting information that's relevant to your business decision making, which may or may not be financial. Some of it will be, some of it won't be. So there are usually multiple sources of information you're going to go to assess the effectiveness of a decision that you've made. The second piece of that is, as you make the decision from a planning perspective, to have thought about what you think the impact is going to be on your business, and then going about making sure there's a way to track whatever that impact is. Whether it's, and you'll see this sometimes, companies do this, where'd you hear about us? That's their way of measuring, the impact of their search engine optimization or their coupon or whatever it is. So when you're making decisions, especially sort of marketing and sales one, where the effect is going to be not necessarily immediate and not necessarily directly visible the way it would be if you decided to buy a new machine, which is very obvious what it's going to do. It's important to think in advance of the impact that you expect it to have and how you're going to measure that.
And also, if you are doing, some of our clients are doing some annual meetings, some team building meetings, some appreciation parties and things like that, there are some conversations outside of the social side of things that come back into governance. We will always talk to you about about doing a 5 to 10 minute morning meeting in operations, a weekly meeting to look back and look forward, a quarterly meeting. Many people are not doing those yet. And if, again, you're in that boat, there's still a meeting to have with at least your managers, but especially your people in operations to say, here's what we added last year, here's what we started doing. What did that do to you? Did it make your work life better, or did it make you start polishing up your resume?
Right.
So when you're looking back, that impact on your people matters too.
Absolutely. The financial or other, I would call it more quantitative data is just one source of data, and getting a report from QuickBooks or from your search engine or from your website is the most straightforward way to communicate. The more complex one is to actually have communications with people to assess the impact of the decisions that you made that affect your employees.
Mm-hmm. And having a plan for that, what am I looking for before you start looking, is very important. The quality of your data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, depends on what you have been paying attention to all year. Right? Your QuickBooks, if it has not been managed well, if you're the one responsible for your QuickBooks and then you send it off to somebody to clean up, it may not be as valid or as relevant. So, taking it with a grain of salt. I remember as a very young business person being told, keep in mind the fudge factor. The more things you can fudge, the more accurate you will be. So when you're working from not great data, but you still need to do that analysis, especially if you're looking forward to 2023 as a strong success year, you want to still look. And that's the thing that I encourage today. So even if you don't get your numbers till June of next year, even if you haven't been running regular meetings with your employees, even if you have not been tracking how people came into your business consistently, there is an exercise to just sit down and say, what do I know?
It is one of the advisory aspects that we're able to do for clients, because we have so much familiarity with how P&Ls work and how small business works and how self-directed QuickBooks work, that if you're at a stage where you need to make a decision or you're trying to assess something, it is very common for us to say to a client, send us what you got, whatever's up to date in QuickBooks up to this period, and then we'll sit with you and work through what that probably looks like for a year. With enough information and enough smart assumptions between your knowledge of your business and sort of all our knowledge of, in this particular case, finance, to be able to come up with, what your starting point probably looks like.
Right, because it's a bit of a story that we end up unraveling as we look backwards. And we have to start with that story when we're looking forward. You can't just start from, well, it was a hard year.
Yes.
Next year's going to be better.
Yeah.
You have to actually look at, why was it a hard year?
Yeah.
If it was, why was it an amazing year? And is it really? That's a challenge, because there's a level of analysis that we love to bring to your actions, your results, your numbers, that let us kind of pick those apart and see, was that profitable? Was it something you want to keep doing? Even evaluating your product line beyond profitability, is it fun to do? Is it something that you value working on, that your employees value working on? Is it something that your clients really value, or is it something that you just kind of feel like you have to add in? Is it teachable? Is it reproducible so that you can actually fully delegate the product line to an employee? Those decisions, as well as you're looking forward to what's going to make 2023 a place of both time and financial freedom, that it deserves a look right now. The reality that we see is people don't have business plans and annual plans and quarterly goals to look back to. And even if you started the year in 2022 with all that, you may not have carried forward. New Year's resolutions typically last till February 18th, and then over 80% of them have fallen through the wayside. So all great plans without great support, without accountability and coaching and mentoring and that analysis that you need to see if it's even doing anything, they fall apart on you.
They do. And it ends up being a pool of, at the end of the year of okayness or ouchies or, hey, that went well, but we don't know why it went well. And then it's hard to take credit for your good decisions if you don't know why the numbers ended up the way they did. Mm-hmm. Right? And you want to go, hey, I made a great decision in whatever time of the year that was.
Even if it didn't go well, it may have been a great decision that wasn't executed fully. And so that's the other thing to look at this time of year, is it is actually a time to celebrate, to congratulate yourself for getting through the year, absolutely, because it was still a tough year post-COVID, but also for looking for those things that actually light up in your recollection and in that of your employees, to say this is wise, this is where we really tapped into what our clients wanted. We had a conversation with a client after planning the summit and really mapping out what's the program we want to deliver at the summit, and we're saying, well, people need this and people need this and people need this, and we're like, we think, right, we're pretty sure we know what our client wants by this point. And then we had a conversation with a prospect, and he says, I just need this and I just need this and I just need this, and Jim and I looked at each other and went, yeah, we've got it, we've got that language.
Yes. Yeah. So, and the only way you get that, the only way you know that and confirm your assumptions and your decisions and the way you decide to do something is by getting feedback. And that's a very powerful way to get feedback, is from a potential client, because everybody's always looking to convert potential clients into clients. And this is going to sound, a little bit like a cliche, because people use it that way, but it's absolutely true, which is really, as long as you're doing it thoughtfully, the only bad decision is the one that you take that repeats a mistake that you already learned from, right? That's a bad decision, but all other decisions are the best informed one you can make at the time. The learning that you need to take from that is not to make the decision again in an incorrect way. So all this feedback, whether it's from your clients or your employees or your spouse or your business partner or your financial system or your website, whatever that is how you get better at making the decisions that are going to have a material impact on your business.
It can be easy otherwise just to throw out things that were going well and start fresh, and you can see businesses that seem like they're starting fresh each year to excess, right? That they are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Another great thing that you can do when you're going through your financial system, if you're going through QuickBooks, just look back at the customers who supported you over the last year and notice how many of those customers are new customers, how many are loyal customers. This is also a time of year where people stop doing sales and networking, thinking everybody's off on holidays. But a good time for you to stand out then, to say, I'm just going to call up 10 or 20 of those people, leave a message on their machine saying, I just want to thank you for your custom for the past year. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Not selling them anything, not even asking them anything, but really just reaching out.
So powerful just to call to say hello.
So that is part of that looking back at the year. What action do we take when we look back at the year? Because we've talked about some of the actions you don't want to take, which is throwing the baby out with the bathwater or not celebrating. So when we look at what can you take from that knowledge looking forward, it's how you decide you want to be as a business owner in the year ahead. I was talking to a prospect yesterday, and she said, we've had an amazing year, but what we've realized is we want to be intentional about how we're amazing next year. Who we serve, who we don't serve, what we do and what we don't do, because she said we've just been accepting everything that lands in our lap.
Right. It's very tempting.
It is. And they're only just rolling into their second year of business now, but had previous business experience that they brought to this new business, and that's why they're so much wiser, so much sooner.
Yes, but they're still in year 2 of their 5-year overnight success.
That's right.
So there's a ways to go. And cycling back on what you just said, back to the calling people at Christmas, there's nothing wrong with having your communication plan established at the start of the year that intentionally lists, in November we're going to make a list of all the clients we're going to call at Christmas, kind of thing. So it can look spontaneous. The way to measure it is if it's actually planned out, and you know what the impact, what you want to have that impact be. And again, some of it is not directly measurable, but intentionality provides a framework for the measurement of your decision making.
And looking back also helps you stop looking for new ways forward.
Yes.
There are things that are working for you. Do them more, right?
Yes.
Find those 20% of your activities that were actually generating revenue, having an impact, making a difference. There's a huge temptation at this time of year to say what's working now, what new technology, what new social media, what are the gurus saying about new techniques. But business know-how, it doesn't change that much.
It doesn't age, and intentionality isn't, of course, only about what you do. It's about what you expect from what you do. Mm-hmm. So the intentionality piece has both components, and then you know what you're trying to accomplish. And maybe when you go about a program intentionally and you go, I don't expect this to have an impact for 6 months, but it's going to take 6 months of concerted effort doing this thing, and that might preclude you doing some other things that show up on your radar that where you go, yeah, but I'm not going to see the result of what I'm doing now for 6 months, so I'm going to keep at this for 6 months. So you have to stay nimble, but you really have to be committed to the, thoughtful, intentional things that you put in place and see them through and measure their impact.
Yeah, and if you don't have the tools to do that, then that's a thing to reach out for, because you can allow your business to eat your time and eat your life when you're doing these distracted, I need to try something new.
Yes.
When we unpack what happened in 2022 with you, we will generally find 2 or 3 things that you did excellently, that actually had results, that had an impact that you may not have acknowledged, that if you just sit down and take the time and look at those things, lay them out and say, how can I do this 10 times as much and stop doing these other things that were eating my time? Or how can I do this in a better way that is then intentional and measurable? Those things that maybe happened by happenstance that were a brilliant idea with that one client that you didn't do with any other clients or customers. So as you look back, I suggest starting just journaling, writing out the story of your year, and what really stands out for you. If you just set a timer for 15 minutes of how did the year go? What did we add that maybe we didn't really follow through on? What worked really well that we want to make sure that we keep doing? And what are the things that I know created problems in the company, whether it was for clients, for employees, or for yourself, that led to putting out fires or disappointments or expectations that weren't met? And just start there. It's the story that matters really more than anything.
So that's interesting. I'm not a journaler myself, but I think of it as an introspective process. But you're saying there's a lot of value in making it an extrospective process, if you want to think about that, like outside yourself and looking at your company. Yeah,
bringing it outside, but just as a story. So you're not holding yourself to a requirement to have data analysis to understand how your year went, but you've also carved out the time to focus on that particular exercise instead of just hoping to go by gut. Right? Most of our clients, they've grown their business to a point where they can't grow by gut. They do need to just sit down and think through the story. What really happened? What did I hear in my business? What did I see? And then from there, just understand what you'd like to dig a little deeper into. You might decide, you know what, first week of January, let's call a staff meeting. I want to find out what people experienced as we introduced that new product line, or we started onboarding customers in this new way. What happened?
Right.
This is a good time to look at those processes and actually evaluate whether there's some streamlining needed, whether some things were just a kooky idea that you had after a couple of glasses of wine that didn't really work out the way you wanted, but people haven't pushed back yet on them, at least not vocally or in an official fashion. that's an opportunity, because as a small business owner, an owner operator, or even an owner manager, everything you do has a big impact on the company, but you may not get that feedback because your company is small enough that there isn't a layer between you and the employee to go to with that feedback. So creating that safe space to say, let's look where process failed, is a good thing to do.
It is. It absolutely is. I'm thinking about an exercise that we went through at our last summit, which will be an important piece going forward of the summits. Once you've digested and validated the lessons of the year gone by, or maybe if you're doing this for the first time, you can think back to the start of your business if it's relatively recent, and think about a number of the decisions that have been made and the ways, things that have worked in the company, whether you planned them or not. There's a very there's a really interesting tool process for thinking about how the changes that worked, how to reflect the changes that worked in the financials at a high level of your business going forward. And that allows you to make decisions on prioritization, because all companies, not just small ones, all companies are resource constrained. No company can do everything that it wants to do. It has to pick and choose. And you want to pick and choose the things that are most impactful to the company, most impactful to how you want the company to be, and setting that priority of all the things that you could be doing. And entrepreneurs are never short of ideas, but ranking them and setting out the priority of them, and whether or not you have the resources to accomplish them, or what you need to do to get the resources to accomplish them, is really important, that prospective section of that process.
And I think we'll actually break this into two segments. We're going to talk about how do you set big inspiring goals, but realistic goals, and how do you know that they're realistic? How do you know that you're setting a goal that is achievable in the year, or at least something that if you fall short, you're still going to be really proud of yourself? And we'll separate that into a separate segment that we'll still record right now, so we'll be still doing the same things. But I think the biggest thing about the looking back at the year, just to finish that off, is to don't let the fact that you're not getting your year-end reports, your year-end financials until June, stop you from looking back right now. I think that's the real key.
Absolutely.
There are so many ways that you can look back and really evaluate that year, both qualitatively and quantitatively, to a level of certainty that will allow you to set some goals for the year ahead, because now is generally the time to set those goals.
This is the time of year to do it.
Yeah. And nothing to do with New Year's resolution, but much to do with the lull that kind of happens right now for many people, that they are taking some time and taking stock. Even if your year end is October 31st, there's something about December 31st that it is a great time. So we're going to take a break and come back in seconds with how to set those goals, and just dive into some more specifics on that, because what you're hinting at, that tool from the summit, I think we'll dive into it just a little deeper.
All right.
Next.